What up, everybody, and welcome to Baz on Blades. My name is Baz, and I talk about blades, and today I want to start off the video by wishing all of you a very Merry Christmas. Today is Christmas Day 2023. This video will be posted Christmas evening, and I just want to say I hope all of you had a fantastic, very Merry Christmas. Please stick around to the end of this video. You guys are going to get a little heads up on an upcoming event here at Baz on Blades. So today we are taking a look at another Twosun product. This is the TS346, and many of you may remember that Baz on Blades did an unboxing video and initial impressions of this knife, and it was missing a part. And that is the cross bolt for the secondary safety feature or lock feature of this knife. You see the hole right there next to the pivot, and we will cover that later in the video. So that part was missing out of the box. Yeah, that's okay. Things are missing sometimes. So I contacted Justin. Justin contacted Twosun Knives. They said they would send the part. They never did. So Justin and I waited for months. Never came. So he was kind enough. He pulled another example off the shelf, robbed the part out of it, and sent me the part. Thank you very much, Justin, for that. White Mountain Knives, the only place I buy Twosun products. Do not waste your time on eBay auctions. Just go to White Mountain Knives. Use any of the numerous 10% discount codes and you will get a fantastic deal on these knives. This knife, the TS346 with D2 as your blade steel, is $89.99. Take 10% off. That's $80.99 shipped to your door. This is a great deal. A whole lot, as we say in the South, of knife for $80.99, even in D2. Now, this is a full-size, may I say, heavy-duty knife, and you know Baz on Blades does not throw those words around lightly, especially when it comes to folders. But again, we will get into that later in the review. Full-size knife, nice beefy build. What we're looking at here is 3 15/16 of an inch of blade length, and that's about 10 centimeters. The blade width, it's a nice wide blade, 1.4 inches or 35 millimeters. Blade stock thickness, beefy at 197 thousandths of an inch or 5 millimeters. Behind the edge thickness, due to this very high flat grind, 18 thousandths of an inch or 0.46 millimeters. Handle length, 5 1/8 of an inch or 13 centimeters. The width at the widest point, 1.4 inches or 35 millimeters. And your thickness is exactly a 1/2 inch or 13 millimeters. Overall length, just over 9 inches or 23 centimeters. Handle to blade ratio, good at 0.75. Your weight, 7.48 ounces or 212 grams. It's beefy, okay? So this is a full-size knife, and it feels like a beefy full-size knife. It does not feel heavy for its size. So even though 7.48 ounces or 212 grams is, yes, it is heavy. Okay, don't get me wrong. It just doesn't feel heavy for its size. Let's get into materials. We're going to talk about the blade, and that is in D2. D2 steel is not new to any of us, and I know all of you right now are like, oh, geez, I'm so tired of D2. And it's not that D2 is bad. It's just we see it in everything from every manufacturer in the budget realm. You cannot get away from it. There's other steels in that budget, upper budget, mid-range area that can be used, and we would like to see some of those, please. D2 steel, it's decent. It's a tool steel. Semi Semi-stainless. It misses the stainless designator by about 1.5% of chromium, high in carbon. It's moderately tough. It's not super tough. It can be a little chippy, especially if the edges run hot or ground really thin. So 18 thousandths behind the edge, I'm pretty good with that. 18 to 20 thousandths behind the edge on this very wide flat grind on that blade stock thickness is a very good balance of slicing capability with edge strength, because it's just the slightest, just a couple of thousandths thicker behind the edge, and steels really need that to support that edge. So not too bad there. D2, fairly easy to take care of. Just keep it clean, especially if you cut food, especially acidic food. Don't dare cut any citrus or a tomato or meat with D2 and not clean it. It will patina, okay? It'll rust. Now, other than that, you keep it clean, wipe it down with a rust preventative every once in a while, and just use it. It's a good user steel. It'll take a pretty razor sharp edge, and it'll hold that for a moderate amount of time. When it loses that, it tends to be a toothy and aggressive cutter then. I like D2, depending on how the heat treat is, as a cutting steel. I don't like it as much as a slicing steel, but I do like it as a cutting steel. If you're cutting down a lot of cardboard and you want an edge that will instantly grab the cardboard and instantly start cutting, no slide to it at all, D2 is a good steel for that. In our handle material, we're looking at big, thick titanium slabs. Now, I know in my previous video, and I know a lot of you are thinking, this is sort of like one of those super expensive knives from that little company that's got the crazy guy that runs it. His name starts with M, and it's the same name of the knives. And you are absolutely right. This knife is 1,000,000,000% in that spirit. And I may even reference some of that other manufacturer's knives, because I have owned multiple of those knives. This is, I'm going to tell you right now, a very, very good budget alternative to one of those much more expensive knives in many, many different ways. So we got titanium slabs. We've got all T8 small screws on this. We've got a big, long, supportive titanium backspacer here, integral lanyard loop that is huge. If you can't get some cord through that, get some help. I mean, literally, not only with the cord, but get some fucking help. You need it, okay? It's got an interesting looking machined titanium pocket clip there. It does have a slot that you could epoxy in a tritium vial in that, and I'm going to tell you right now, that would be totally badass, so I'm down with you doing that. You do have this big, chunky looking pivot and pivot collar here. Now, just because that head of that pivot is large, and just because it has a huge collar on it, does not mean that that pivot itself, the diameter of the shaft, is any bigger or stronger than anything else. But it does look super tough. Again, it was all T8 hardware. We do have hidden hardware on the pocket clip, and I have disassembled this knife. Let's see if we can get some light reflected up in there on the inside. I can't see shit on the inside of that, and that's crazy because I've got extra lighting on. Maybe you can see right there, it does have some machine pockets in it on the inside, so it is not nearly as heavy as it would be. So there are your materials. Let's get into the fit and finish of this knife, and I'm going to tell you right now, barring the exclusion of this part, there is absolutely nothing bad I will say about this knife. This is an incredibly well-made and well-designed knife, not just in the fit and finish, not just in the aesthetics of how the package comes together design-wise, but there are some very cool features on this knife that make it a heavy-duty folder. So fit and finish is perfect. Everything is done in this black wash that is heavily stone washed. So it's got the black coating on it, and then they throw it in some sort of media and they stone wash it, and it cuts that coating back and it leaves that surface look. You can see it's heavily stone washed, so it's not super black. It's like a dark gunmetal, and it is such a good looking surface finish and coloring for this. Just look at how this plunge line sweeps up into the top termination of this primary grind here, and you get this line, and that's from, you know, the stone wash bringing it back, and those are corners, and those get the finish gets scrubbed off of them faster than the flats within the media. It's just a good looking finish, and they did a really good job of matching the finish between the disparate materials. That's one of the hardest things to do when you do a surface finish like this and you use disparate materials, i.e. you're using titanium here, you're using steel here. These two materials are radically different as far as their hardness goes. Okay? They take finishes differently. They also, their wear resistance to the abrasive materials in the tumbler, they react to those abrasive materials differently. So matching the finish between these two materials, they did an excellent job. The satin as machine sort of satin finish on all the small hardware, the pivot and the screws. It gives this knife a very tool-like, industrial, modern, sort of cutting edge, please, forgive the pun there, sort of cutting edge look to it. It's a very industrial, again, very interesting design on the pocket clip in conjunction with the sort of relief milling for your lock bar here, to make it more flexible so the lock is not too hard to use. It being done externally in the style that it's being done with these 4 ball milled channels, I think that matches up really well with the ball mill work that's on the pocket clip. And then you've got this nice long solid back spacer, and that really, everything just matches up. Look at the design of this back spacer. It's not flat and flush. So you've got a wide flat plane chamfer around the perimeter of the handle here. Going into a raised, that back spacer is proud of the spine of the handle here. And it's also got a wide flat plane chamfer on it along the edge. And it brings it up, and it's almost like crowning the spine of a blade. It gives the back of the handle here sort of a crowned feel and look. And it gives you multiple flat sections that the light, as you rotate that knife and use it, you're going to see all of those different angles. And that is detail that you may not consciously be aware of, but it is what makes a design like this interesting. I very much appreciate things like that. We've got workable jimping all over this knife. This jimping, look at that. I'm so proud of whoever designed that jimping. I should have bought him something for Christmas. I feel like I should have. It's fantastic front and back. The fit and finish on this knife is crazy. Now, this knife is not on bearings. It is on phosphor bronze bushings, and it feels like it's on phosphor bronze bushings. It is pretty smooth, but it is obviously on a solid bushing, and it's not going to be one of those super flicky flick open. If I use a little bit of, damn it, I'm trying to do this under the camera. If I use a little bit of inertia, I can spotty flick it. As far as rolling it open, you get a very satisfaction roll open, because as soon as I break that detent, I'm feeling the surface of those phosphor bronze bushings all the way around. And when it comes to a piece of equipment, sometimes feeling something like that adds to the experience. It feels like a tool. it doesn't feel like a fancy pocket fidgety spinning knife sort of thing. It feels like a tool, and when you open it up and you feel those phosphor bronze washers and the materials of the blade and the interaction between the inside of the slabs of the handle scales, the frame, you feel all of that, and to me it adds something to it. Now, like I say, it's not a great fidget tool, although if you are better at spotty flicking and you're not under a camera with only a few inches to move around, you might be a little bit, there we go. I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad. Don't get me, don't get things twisted. These little semi-fullers, opening thumb groove grip sections are nice and deep. I did not measure that, but they are plenty deep, okay? They're plenty deep, and all of these surfaces are relieved. There is no sharp surfaces. There's no almost burr-like finished surfaces. Everything has been softened. Everything has been melted. So the performance is, as far as opening and closing, I won't consider it a fidget tool. It's more of a tool. It's not, I didn't mean to say fidget tool, a fidget toy compared to a tool, and that's what it feels like. Now, let's get into the utilitarian use of this knife. Now, of course, we've got a drop point blade here with a nice high flat grind, pretty thin behind the edge, nice thick blade stock for strength. We don't have distill taper until fairly close to the tip. You can see this wedge as it tapers down. That's your distill taper. And that lends a lot of strength behind the tip, which is still, it still catches. It still catches. You can see that it catches there. It's not super sharp, pokey, piercy, but it is capable of piercing. You have a lot of great belly here on this blade, a nice long straight section to get for up close detail work, and you also see you have a forward finger choil here that is super wide and flat in this area. This is plenty of surface area to even out force. When you get up on it, it feels like it's meant to be used. Okay, it doesn't feel like a forward choil that's just added to it. It actually feels like a rest for your finger. So that in itself is a great part of this design, and it does contribute to the utilitarian usefulness of this knife. Like I say, you've got fantastic jimping on it for those of you that really like that. The handle design is very neutral. It is wide open. It is moderately ergonomic. It is rounded at the butt, but it is not really dropped at the butt too much. You don't really have a forward finger choil here. It's not really deep enough to be like a secure tactical finger choil. You don't have a bird's beak back here, so you don't have a really confined ergonomic-y sort of melt in your hand type of feel. Again, you have a straightforward tool-like grip. Now, this is in my large size hand with medium length chubby fingers. You can see how I grip it. Everything lines up perfectly. My hand falls right on that jimping. I can get right up here in this forward grip, and the patch of jimping is long enough. I don't have to be compressed back in when I go to the forward grip. I'm still really good and relaxed. I can get right up on that edge to do detail cutting. I think as far as utilitarian usefulness, it ranks very highly in the tool-like category. It's not a piece of pocket jewelry unless you want to have the toughest folder in the group of guys standing around comparing their knives like we do. I doubt anybody's going to have a tougher folder than you, and we're going to talk about that right now. Now, a lot of people are going to be thinking, oh, it's the cross bolt. It's the cross bolt. It locks this thing into a real fixed blade. It does not. Okay, it is, in my mind, a secondary safety, okay, when using a knife with a frame lock. Frame locks, I love a frame lock. It's probably actually my favorite type of locking mechanism for just an everyday carry knife. It works with so many different designs, so many different opening techniques, so many different carry techniques. It works in any size. It's great. But it's not the strongest lock out there. There are mechanically superior locks. So if you're going to hard use a frame lock, a secondary safety is nice. It's almost like the locks, the Lake and Walker knife safety that Columbia River uses. It's like that. It is not going to make it into a fixed blade, but it will give you a secondary to save you if the primary lock fails under hard use. So what this is you got a hole through here, you got a hole through here, the blade's got a hole right there. You can see the blade. Now let's get up very close. You see the back wall on this hole. That's about 1 millimeter thick. And I did not put a set of calipers on it, and I don't have my calipers out here right now, but that is not very thick at all. Now, the good thing is, if you're using this knife to baton, let's say, that force is not going to be on that side of the hole. That side of the hole would prevent the blade from failing and closing up. That's not, you don't put a lot of force on a knife for that. So I'm not going to say that is a weak spot because I just don't think you're going to have that type of force, directional force on that blade. I'm just pointing out that potentially under the craziest circumstances might be an issue. Okay? I don't think you're ever going to have that. I cannot think of any way. It just could potentially happen, and for liability issues, if you're using this and that comes apart and it cuts your head off, I don't want your widow and I don't want your kids coming after me and trying to take the tens of dollars that I have in the bank and saying that my husband died because Bazon Blades said this thing could not fail and he was going to prove it by battening a piece of wood right up next to his neck and it failed and it cut his head off. And Bazon Blades, you've got to give us $14 million. So that's why I say things like this. This thing goes through. The frame on the back side is threaded. So it did have, this finish is also down in the threading, so it is not like butter smooth. It's just that finish in there, this black finish that's down in there, and I cleaned it out quite a bit, so it's pretty smooth. So it goes down in there, and you see you've got a nice eyelet on here you can connect a piece of cord to. You could tie it off to the tail end, always have it with you. You could always have it with you. If you got one, you got the other. They're fucking connected. And there you go. So I want to show you something. If the lock fails, it comes over, the blade loose. Okay, now listen to this. Okay, that is a few thousandths of play. So that is not a secondary lock. Okay, that blade is not locked. It is a secondary safety. It needs to be treated that way. But for what it is, it's very well done. That key is small, small enough to accidentally leave out of the box when you ship this thing out from the factory. It's happened before from what I hear. It's not obtrusive. It doesn't stick way out of the knife. You could attach a lanyard to it when you wrap it around. That would leave enough lanyard here that you could put your hand through it, or what? Maybe you're left-handed. You would want to put your hand through that loop. I don't know. You could do that. I don't think there's any rules against that. We'll just we'll have to ask the police about that. Can you do that or not? Now, that is a thing you all might be thinking, and that's what makes this the super duper uber strongest knife Bazon Blades has ever seen, which it's not. That would belong to fixed blade knives. It is not the major contributing factor to the strength of this knife, in my opinion. The major contributing factor is a couple of decisions they made. The first is they used a solid titanium full-length backspacer. that supports that knife on the back side here. Okay, it will make this, there's no sense of flex in this knife at all. It is a very solid foundation, owed much to that. The secondary thing is pivot strength. Now, like I say, a big pivot head does not mean a strong pivot, but wider clamping area does make a stronger pivot. Okay? And the addition of 2 through bolted points on this frame next to the pivot. Look at this. One is going through on this big fancy ass, look at that, double ball milled stop pin. We didn't look at that. Let's take a look at that. Look at that. That's pretty sweet on an $80 knife. See where I cut myself? That's a cardboard cut. It's 2 days old. Shit. So, anyway, you've got these 2 through bolted sets of screws. That makes this area of this, I don't even know what, I would say at least 100% stronger. At least 100% stronger than just having the pivot hold this end together and having a captured pin inset for your stop pin, which is the way many knives are made. That full back spacer, the decision to do this double bolt through here, along with the pivot with the larger clamping area, that adds to the strength of the knife. Okay, the structural strength of this knife. This knife, I promise you, is less flexible than it would be if these 2 things had not been done. The back spacer and these contact points here. This knife would not be half the knife it is without those 2 decisions. Then you add in a cross bolt, okay, for a secondary safety feature, and you can feel comfortable using this knife for more heavy duty use than you typically would a folding knife, even a big, thick folding knife. Okay, now I've got another Twosun product here, whatever this is, a TS 1004837BJ, whatever. But look, this knife has got the pivot holding it together at the front end, and that's it. And then you've got hardware all the way back here at the back, and your back spacer is all the way back here at the back. Compared to this build, with all this connective hardware up here clamping this together, this is a much stronger folding knife. It just is. It is just more mechanically sound, a folding knife. I really like that about this knife. And I've got to tell you, I would not feel bad about using this knife in a more heavy-duty fashion. I think with the cumulative increases in integral strength, the addition of a secondary safety with that through bolt, I think this knife, actually, you could say this is a heavy-duty folder, and I can't believe I'm saying that. And I'm still not saying it is as strong as a fixed blade. It absolutely is not. It is not as strong as a fixed blade. But for a folder, it is heavy-duty. I can't believe I'm saying that. I think I just threw up a little bit in my mouth. I don't know. I'm going to have to take some medicine here. I'm going to have to take some medicine here. The spirit of Christmas. That's a little bit of Angel's Envy. Dan the man bought Bazon Blades, a beautiful bottle of Angel's Envy whiskey. And I know that's sacrilege to have it on ice, but Bazon Blades is a fucking wussy boy and cannot stand to drink straight alcohol. So let's get into a little heads up and get out of this video. Guys, we are coming up on 500 videos here at Bazon Blades. Who would have thought I would have had 500 in me? I wouldn't have. And we're at like 1.6 million views. So we're going to do a celebration, and New Year's Day, be looking for this New Year's Day. I am going to do a giveaway announcement. You are hearing it first here, and I know it doesn't really mean anything because it's not going to happen until New Year's Day, but it's going to be a great prize package, and there's going to be one lucky winner. And the only thing Baz on Blades is requiring is, here comes the big long list of requirements, and you have to subscribe to Baz on Blades on YouTube, follow Baz on Blades on Instagram, and you will comment on the giveaway video. That's it. That's all the rules. You don't have to tag 10 of your friends. You don't have to name your first child Baz on Blades, although that would be fucking rad. You don't have to do any of that. I mean, if you got like a really super hot sister, you could send her over. You know, Baz on Blades is not going to turn down any super hot sisters. But not if you have a super hot sister that used to be your brother. Okay, Baz on Blades is not down with that. And with that, I'm going to get out of this video. As always, thank you very much for watching one of my super duper long videos. I hope you guys love knives as much as I do and enjoy talking about them as much as I do. God bless all of you, and we will talk to you again.